got a lot done. Got guys down there today, changed 4 tires because it was all rusted out. And I try to keep them lubricated and all that, but I forget. Oh, I suck. Um, and then I got the RV guy coming to get it all road ready this week, so should be getting down there. I'm gonna take the boat probably not Mother's Day weekend, the weekend after, and then I'm gonna take the trailer June 1st. So come see us. I'll be seeing both of you guys more.
All right.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, because Sergeant was so far away from Matagorda.
Yeah, but I saw Caleb more than you. I was talking about mostly. I was talking about you.
You just have to
go
stop
over
by
there.
here on your way there or back.
Yeah.
Right on the
Yeah.
way.
So anything else you want to add? I added that redfish one, and should be
Tommy
good.
Tommy Kuntz has a fundraiser. They're trying to get a lift that takes him from the dock to his boat. 'Cause he's trying to keep guiding.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
posted on our page. I didn't see the details though. What is his condition? What does he have?
Half a leg.
Oh, so he had his leg amputated?
Mm-hmm.
Damn. That
Yeah.
stinks.
He's trying to start Stumpy's guide service.
Well, I don't know if the Coast Guard will let him keep his license.
Well,
Yeah, what's the deals on that?
I don't know. They also say they drug test us, and they don't really seem to care about that much.
You would
I
know.
don't know. I don't. Yeah, I mean, he might be able to guide. It depends on when his license renews, I guess.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. All right. You guys ready?
Always.
All right, here we go. See if I can get this right. And the loop. And get a lot of ground to cover today. John Lopez right here. Captain Scott Knoll right across from me, as is Captain Caleb McCumber. I made the mistake of saying he was a legend, and I think I'm going to end up regretting that. A lot to cover. Appreciate the people that are listening live on my YouTube channel. It's a nice place to interact live while we're recording the podcast. It'll be posted Wednesday morning. A lot to cover. A lot of questions, as always, from our listeners, and some kind of public service things that I think our listeners are definitely going to want to be a part of or hear about. But of course, some topics on fishing. Interesting question about our walk-in waders days numbered just because of everything happening on the coastlines and harder to get in and out. Redfish tailing, or maybe they're tailgating too, popping a couple of cold ones on the way. All sorts of great topics. Myths, or do you buy it? Some kind of rapid fire questions that I've gotten sort of culled together over the last few days. From last few weeks, really, from various listeners. And I don't really know how much Captain Scott and Captain Caleb have done this over the years. I'm guessing Scott has, but fishing with green lights off of a boat, I've done it. I actually did it a lot in Port O'Connor back in the day. And of course, what would Scott do? What would Caleb do? Let's get started. And let's get started. Oh, first of all, don't forget to subscribe if you're listening to us on the recording. We post it Wednesday morning, anywhere you get your podcast, iTunes and Spotify, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the Bite Me group page, which is very interactive. Post every week when we record this podcast. And we have a lot of listeners listening live right now while we record. But if you don't, we get it. Listen on your commute, listen on the way to the boat ramp, whatever it may be. All right. So, man, where do I begin here with Captain Caleb? First of all, congratulations, sincerely. That was big time, big time what you did. We'll get the details on that. But you went from stuck to taking wrong turns to tornadoes to the stage, and a lot of our listeners are very much interested and have been interested in your redfish tournament standings. So to kind of walk us through the week, and I know Scott and myself are going to have some commentary along the way. But what was that like? Now that you can talk about it.
Well, first off, I never took a wrong turn, John.
Yeah, it looked like you did. It looked like you did.
No, there was a tree in the right turn. It was actually a left turn. The left turn had a little bit more right in it than needed.
So the tree was always there, and that's where you usually turn.
I actually knew that tree quite well.
And well, you got to know it better.
Well, I think I had a camera guy with me that day, and I saw it coming, and I looked at him. I was like, hold on.
This is gonna get fun.
The calmness and in my face while this is going down, I think startled him more than the actual actions itself.
Yeah, it's like clearly this guy has done this before. That's not.
It's an everyday thing.
Yeah, it's not. He should be much more scared than he is.
Now, where most of the impact was is where Steve was. I don't know that Steve will ever fetch a stick again.
They fetched him.
I look down from that tower. I can see Steve like, what the hell, man?
But seriously, what the hell? What happened? Why would you do that? Why would you run into a tree?
I mean, I need content. You need content
You did it for the podcast.
Podcast, Facebook. I mean,
yeah.
What kind of fun is it? And yeah, man, just went out and run around, caught some fish and shit. That was great. I mean,
everybody does that.
Everybody but me, apparently.
But not everybody runs into a tree.
No, I had to have my trim tabs buried to deal with the other obstacles that I was facing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was running a hole that I haven't ran a whole lot, and turns out it doesn't really turn when the trim tabs are buried. I saw this tree coming at 100 yards. And I kept doing this and that, trying to get this to grab and that to grab, and the front of the boat would change directions, but the actual trajectory of the boat would not. I mean, the best part of it is I got to slow down to at least 25 miles an hour before I hit the tree, which is an accomplishment in itself.
Mm-hmm.
John.
Yeah, I actually thought, did the thought occur to you to, maybe, I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, slow down?
Oh, I'd slow down for 150 yards.
And then you slowed down real fast.
I slowed down. It's a long story with a very short ending, John.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I went from about 50 to 40, and then 30, and then 25, then 29, then 28, and
then
back
0.
To 25 and 24, and then about 0 after that. I'd say it was pretty accurate. Getting stuck, man. First off, whoever commented the seagrass thanks you, that's not seagrass, dude. That's seaweed. We call that canned kelp. I could kill every bit of it. I would. I hate that stuff, and the fish don't like it either. All it's good for is getting plugged up in your prop and it actually makes the water dirtier most of the time. That stuff sucks. But yeah, that said, I guess I think that was the first time.
Yeah,
and
then
I want to go.
You
ahead
kind of got stuck.
If you don't require another boat to come get you, you did not get stuck. You slowed down.
Oh no, you got stuck
in a lot of amount of time.
Then I've never been stuck.
Well, then there.
I know I have.
That's some dang fine boat driving.
No, it's not.
Now so in typical Delacroix fashion and typical Caleb and Daniel showing up to South Louisiana fashion, the 2 weeks going into it, just like I tell people, I practice what I preach. I'm watching what the conditions are. I'm every day. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at that, and the tide's 3 foot high, dude. Like 3 foot high. The spots that are usually 3 foot high are 6 feet deep, right? The house that we stay in, the whole yard was 8 inches of water. Like the tide was that high. I show up that day, a wind blows, and those 6 foot deep flats are mud flats. Now there's birds walking around on them,
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to drive a little bit differently. And we're running through channels and stuff, and the grass on the bank's a little bit high, and you can't really see that next corner. And the boat we were in, it slides a little bit, so we kind of stick your nose in the corners and come around it. And we stuck our nose in a corner and came around it, and there wasn't water there anymore. And pinned it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Ended up about 10, 12 feet short, and we got out of that in about 11 minutes because I'm a bit of a professional at this.
Yeah.
The second
Not by
time,
choice.
second time, there's this thing called the Mississippi River over there. And for you folks that have the luxury of just driving around in some salt water over here that changes a little bit with occasional hurricane, don't really know a whole heck of a lot about this here Mississippi River. If
Mhm.
there is a set of locks, if there's any opening to the Mississippi River, everything within 2 or 3 miles of that changes all the time. So for middle coasters, imagine driving through the middle of East Matagorda Bay. For lower coasters, or imagine driving through the middle of Baffin. Upper coasters, you're driving through the middle of Sabine, and you're enjoying your day. You're just driving along, hanging out. You're a couple miles off each shoreline, listening a little bit. I was listening to Jelly Roll. That's the thing I listen to when I drive around on the boat. And all of a sudden, you stop. There's no other way to put it.
Because the water's gone.
And you can't tell because that river and the particular situation it's in now is a bit turbid, and it's all the same color. And you're just driving, and you stop.
Mm-hmm.
And you think that, well, blew up my motor or hung up a crab trap or something.
Right.
And then you attempt to rock the boat, and there's no wiggle in there. That one's got, I mean, I hung around there and looked around for about 15 or 20 minutes. I've never had that much sand on the top of a console in a tower boat.
Oh, I saw it.
Yeah. But we got out of there. Chuck McKinney makes a prop that's been the topic of the podcast page a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, maybe your lower unit likes it less than a 4-blade prop. Maybe it doesn't. But it gets you out of the Mississippi River whenever you find yourself in that situation. So I left there.
Okay, Scott.
That was my favorite.
No, hold on.
Video.
We're gonna get to the rest of this, but we got to put a pin in that because Scott, I have questions, but I'm just going to ask you because I know you have opinions too. Generally speaking, and I haven't been a professional, tournament angler, but I've been in a great number of tournaments. When I'm scout, sure you want to get to your next spot, you want to scout everything. I'm generally not 50, 55 miles an hour though. That's the first thing that popped off the page, so to speak. Secondly, how has Caleb been, Delacroix? How many times has he seen that big old Mississippi? I mean, these are not like new things, Scott.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah.
Give him an answer. Scott.
It does change over there. There's no doubt. But yeah.
No, I
usually
realize that.
When I'm in unfamiliar water, I tend to not go quite so fast. But that's just me. I mean, I have to pay for the stuff that I tear up. So, it gets kind of iffy. And it kind of bothers me to have to write a check for a big old thing like that, like a motor or a lower unit or any of those kind of
It
things.
would bother most people.
It
would bother most people.
Now, let me ask you this question, John. When you're checking between spots, I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna go check that spot over there, and I'm gonna go check that spot over there, and I might go check that spot over there. Now, whenever I say that, I get up and I launch in De La Croix, Louisiana, and I say today I'm gonna check everything from between here and Venice.
Okay.
That's the difference in that I have 4 days until tournament time. The tide's starting to come back, and I need to look at 140 miles of water because I don't have time to do 20, 30 miles a day, 20, 30 miles tomorrow, 20, 30 miles. It's go time. It's go time now. And so what my particular mission that day was, I was marking every piece of clear water between De La Croix and Venice, and it's not the marsh. That's offshore, dude. It's offshore over there. It isn't like leaving out the jetties here. It is hundreds of miles of Gulf of Mexico that's 4 or 5 foot deep. It's hard to explain it to folks that haven't been there and seen it. The first time I saw it, it kind of blew my mind. I'm looking at an offshore rig that's in 6 feet of water. It's a different creature over there.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I get out of that. I'm a bit of a pro at this. I get stuck and get out. Like, I mean, there's no big deal. And as far as tearing stuff up, I called Daniel. I was like, hey man, I'm pretty stuck. He said, all right. He said, can I get to you? I said, maybe. He said, all right, I'm heading my way. Don't tear nothing up. Just hang tight. I was like, all right, cool. And then like 15 minutes later, I texted him. I'm like, hey, I got out. Yeah, we're good. I don't know if that's what he meant by don't mess anything up and stay there, but I got out.
That was my favorite video of the whole week, though. All the videos that you sent me, and all the oddball stuff.
I think I'm gonna
was that 360-degree view of you stuck, and you just showed me a 360-degree view, and the closest land I could see was maybe 7 miles away. I mean, you were literally out in the middle of nowhere.
I think Scott's
stuck.
response was, imagine having a leisurely stroll through the Gulf of Mexico and getting stuck, which is actually what it was.
Wasn't that far off, huh?
I've got to get permission from Daniel. Maybe we all ask him, please, to splice those 3 videos together. Probably bleep some stuff. I don't know if I sent you the one where the trolling motor's laying on the floor of the boat and my line's broken and I'm just getting a beer and driving home. I don't know if I sent you that one or not. But I might end it with that one. It was kind of I'll get to that. So I get unstuck and it's getting to be 4 or 5 o'clock in the day. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go back and look at this last Clearwater spot. I'm gonna at least end my day good. I'd fish. I'd probably caught 30 fish that day, and all of them were 12 to 14 pounders, which ain't good when you're scouting. And I'm by myself. I boat flip everything. When I'm with Daniel, I boat flip everything. But and long story short, I'm gonna go. I want to end the story on a positive note. I'm gonna go catch one of these fish, and then head on in, call it a day. So I get back to the spot, and I float around a little bit. I find a fish, I stick him, and when I go to boat flipping, my line breaks. I'm using 50-pound Suffolks, but I caught enough that day. I guess I nicked it or something. Boom, broke off. I'm like, God dang it. Well, that's not a good start on the day. So I'm gonna go check another spot. And I went over to that other spot, and I put my Ulterra down, and I trolled about 10 yards, and the battery went dead, so I can't even stow the dang thing anymore. And so I've got broken line. I've got an Ulterra that won't stow, and it's a battle to get it off the front of the boat. I get it off, then my little skinny butt has to carry this thing around a tower, get it laid down on the floor. It was the only time.
Easy.
It was the only time. I usually don't drink on the boat. That morning, I thought to myself, I'm gonna throw a couple in there. I feel like I'm gonna want one. And it turns out 2 wasn't enough. That was a good decision I made, and I needed it. But yeah, that's I think it's pretty uneventful, for being honest. I don't know why everybody's so infatuated with it, but
it's eventful. It's definitely eventful. Like any one of those pieces by themselves would be like, wow, man, you should. Let me tell you what happened today. But then you start the tournament, and lo and behold, we got hellacious storms and tornadoes in the midst of the tournament.
So on day 1, it was like a 78% chance of rain and cloudy skies. And day 1 ended up like, where I was at, the rain split and went around me completely. And then later in the day, we made a move to a different spot where I guess we would have got rained on. But day 1 was, pretty cool. We got to kind of maximize what we could get done and everything. Day 2 is like 47% chance of rain, partly cloudy skies. And I'm like, all right, we're cool. I'll throw the rain gear in. We might, get a little scattered sprinkle here and there.
Good choice.
And, man, we get to where we're fishing at, and I'm throwing spinner baits. There's no sun. It's early in the morning. I'm just search baiting it. And I could see the storm on the radar, but the radar had it fizzling out before it got to us. But I'm thinking to myself, like, man, we need to get 3 in the box before this storm hits. And dude, I am the expert at catching like 28, 29-inch fish, just killing them. Can't get anything in the boat. And this storm starts getting close, and he gets right on the horizon, and Chuck McKinney calls me, and he says, because I fish with Robert Rathkamp a lot, and Robert is deathly afraid of thunder, and Chuck got us confused because he knows both of us real well. And he called me. He's like, hey, there's shelter over here. It's not that far. I know you want to get out of this. I said, get out of it. Get out of it. Why would I get out of this? I pulled the boat over and power pulled down. Frank Lee, who's always on our Facebook thing, he lives down there. He fishes there a lot, and he texted me, and he said, "Hey, I hope you're headed to the ramp. this one's going to be nasty. And my response was, or he said, I'm head of the ramp. I said, my response was, hell no. And so we get there, and we debated whether we should or shouldn't take the tower down. Kind of went back and forth, like, maybe, maybe not. Boom! I take the tower down.
Tower is coming down.
Tower's coming down. I took the boat and I ran it up in the grass. I'm experienced in that, so I pretty well nailed that. And we ended up we were squatted down in the boat with the console to our backs with the storm. The direct, it was blowing. It was probably gusting to 60, maybe better. And so we were kind of hiding behind that console. And I look over and I see a tornado forming. And I tell Daniel, I was like, man, look at that tornado. He goes, no, it's not. That's clouds. I was like, clouds ain't supposed to do that, dude. Like it's a triangle shaped cloud coming to the ground. And then we had lightning hit within 300 or 400 yards of us multiple
that's terrifying.
times. Steve is hiding inside my jacket. The first one of them close lightning ones. He comes out of my jacket. He's running in circles around the boat. He don't know whether he wants to get wet. And then he tries to get on the console and he can't because there's 4 inches of water in the boat. It's the storm me and Scott talk about fishing in, but it lasted 2 hours. And and we're sitting here, we missed being day one leaders by half a pound, and we don't have a fish in the boat. We have caught nothing that we can weigh in. And so storm goes through, and the wind's still howling. It's blowing about 30 or so, and we have time to make like 1 or 2 drifts before the next line comes. The tournament's sending us weather updates. One of them said, "Hey guys, look at the radar," and I'm like, "We are aware."
We're well aware of the radar. Yeah. The radar's above our head.
Yeah, we are aware. And anyway, we had time for like 2 drifts, and the wind was blowing so hard, I actually had to put the power poles down and have them stuck in the mud, but then let the wind push us, just drag us through the mud.
Yeah, like hopping.
Yep. We got 3 shots at fish. We saw 3 fish and had 3 shots, and we're able to hit all 3 of them, get the fish in the boat. By our scales, we had an 8.8, an 8.6, and an 8.5. I think the day one leaders were like an 8.3, 8.4 average. We were like an 8.38. I think they were like an 8.4. And man, that next one was charging up, and I could see it flashing and booming. And I told Daniel, I was like, man, we kind of lucked out surviving this last one. Maybe we ought to go ahead and go in. And he couldn't agree more. And Steve's over here like, hell yes.
Yeah, we're going in.
Yeah, let's do that. We're going in. And put them in. The rest of the story, most of y'all know. We had to run probably an extra 10 or 15 miles to get around the brunt of the storm. I wanted to go through some area with trees and some area with houses, so maybe the lightning hit that instead of us.
Yeah.
But the funny part of it is Daniel said it, and I thought it too. He said, if somebody beats us with this average today, hats off to them. And we come putting in, and damn me if the guys that were first place weren't already tied up weighing their fish in too, which is never a good sign. But the first, second, and third place teams, we all were sitting there at like 1:45 waiting for the scales to open at 2, and then those weights held all the way through. So
yeah, damn,
it was a fun one. Yesterday I'm in my front yard doing some chores. I was washing my Yeti, but I call them chores. And some say washing your Yeti. I call them chores. But and there's a thunderstorm rattling on the horizon, and Steve's looking at me like, "Bro, we're going inside. We're not sitting outside again. Come on."
Well, the thing that it needs to be noted here, not to blow up your head too much, is you clearly knew what you were doing out there. And Scott, I know you have thoughts on that and thoughts on that crazy surrogate son of yours.
Well, they did good. I mean, no
they
denying
won
that.
$45,000 and we're in the hole.
Yeah,
that's hard to do.
John.
You win
almost in the
$45,000.
black.
It's like, dang, I got to pull my checkbook out.
Yeah,
almost in the black. I mean, just like a half an ounce from being in the black. One mullet. That's all you needed. One mullet.
One more mullet. But go ahead, Scott. This is a pro here doing it the right way, even though he does some dumb stuff along the way.
Well, I mean, you got to be dedicated to it. I mean, your average guy couldn't have gone out there and done that. And nothing against the average guy. I mean, it just you can't do it unless you put your mind to it and suck it up and just say we're going. We're going to go, and this is our plan. We have a plan. Stick to the plan and work it. And I mean, hats off to them. They pulled it off. I don't know where I would have been looking at that radar. I'm not so sure. I have a thing against lightning. I don't know.
Damn sure know where I'd have been.
I've done some stupid stuff for tournaments. I think everybody that's fished tournaments on a regular basis has lived through some of those stupid moves. I mean, there was one in Matagorda there. I mean, people died that day, actually. I mean, literally died out on the water. They were loading body bags onto the dock when we got back. It wasn't any of the tournament guys, but yeah, there was a boat flipped, and I think it was 2 or 3 people drowned on that deal. I mean, it was a mess, and we damn near sunk our boat. It was the entire cockpit was full, and things that were supposed to be in the cockpit were floating out of the cockpit and into the water, and not having to go over anything.
Yeah, just kind of floating off.
I mean, our boat was basically a submarine. It was just barely hanging on there, and I beached it, and we fiddled around with it and got the bilge pump working, and just sat there for a long time in some nasty weather. We didn't weigh that many fish that day, though. I think we had 2 that were like 6 pounds. I think that's the most we had.
We had one of our fish died, and I think our weight for the tournament was actually negative due to that half-pound penalty. I think we owed them weight. Yeah. Frank said lightning is like 4 bolts a second. Frank's not lying. And one of the things I did say to Daniel is one hit close to us, and I said, "Well, if we heard it, then we're safe. if you heard it, that's good news."
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not in y'all's category. Steve is a champion.
I got to tell you that
he's got PTSD now, and in multiple ways. I mean, he can't be around lightning. Obviously, now he's shot for that. Bad. He can't even go pee on a tree. No. I mean, trees scare him now.
I will say that one of the things Daniel pointed out was later on that day, whenever I hooked up to a fish, Steve was up on he had already shaken off and dried off a little bit, and he was up on the front of the boat doing Steve things again.
Not a baby. I mean, like for our listeners that are, for the most part, not professional tournament anglers, y'all have already touched, Scott, you have on, some of the things that, you can't do and you shouldn't do. But I think there's other messaging here as well. And, for me, I've told the story. I'm not going to get into it now. I mean, I've had a couple of instances in tournaments in Sabine that pretty much scared me straight. And I'm like, yeah, if it's good weather and it's a charity tournament, I'll do it. If it's a charity tournament and it's bad weather, I just bag it. I mean, it's a donation. It's a donation to the charity, but it's a whole different world when you're talking about professionals.
Well, it's also one of those things where if we didn't weigh anything on day one, we probably would have thought a little bit harder about whether we stayed or not. But we had something to fight for at that point.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, when you're sitting in second, I mean, you just got to go. I mean, I've done that before. Where in one of the Redfish Cups, we blew my motor up on day 1, lost the lower unit, and so day 2 the weather wasn't so great. So we just said, you know what? let's just go fish over here. It really doesn't matter what we do. There's no way we could catch up. I mean, it was mathematically impossible for us to be in the money. Yeah, there wasn't really much reason for us to fish. So we just went out. We caught some trout and caught a flounder. Just had a good day. It was a redfish tournament. Hell with it. But
how'd y'all do? We had fun.
No, we had a blast. We were out fishing birds in East Bay. We're in a redfish tournament. We're fishing the birds. The sad part was day one. Day one, we had enough to put us in like 4th place if we'd have been in time. But when you talk about having a negative weigh-in, we were so late to weigh in that we had a negative, even though we had two fish that were 8.5 pounds, and our time was so bad and so late on weigh in that our penalties and then our fish were dead too. So yeah,
Wow.
we were in the negative on the way in.
All right, let's get to some other topics here. But sincere congratulations to you, Caleb. You know, we're all very, very proud of you. Give you a hard time, but that was a big time accomplishment. All right, so for the life of me, I looked and looked and looked, couldn't find the actual question because it was an older one that this referenced. I think it was after Dean was with us a couple of months ago. We got the question about just all the things that are happening up and down the Texas, the Gulf Coast, because we have listeners everywhere. I'm sure others can relate as well. Housing developments, projects, private land, fenced off areas. There were a couple that I ran into this past week, etc. But the gist of the question was, it's just getting harder and harder to do what we all did as kids, including you, I think, Caleb. But I know Scott and I, you know, you pull up for walk-in waiters, you know, not piers, not jetties. So Scott, I'm gonna start with you. I mean, there was a day where I could just pick, like, where do I want to go fish? And I could pretty much assure myself I was going to have several options of where I could walk in. And, you know, or even if it's a house, you know, you can get to know the person and, you know, you're catching and releasing or whatever, and they let you fish. The question, the gist of it was, are the days of walk-in waiters numbered, and what are the options? Because let's be honest, I mean, we all go out on our boats, but we still like to wade fish occasionally. And sometimes I'll pull over my truck and see something and want to fish. Are the days numbered? Is it getting that hard to find good walk-in spots anymore?
Yeah, I think a whole lot of that has to do with how trashed the spots got. Yeah, and a lot of that, I mean, they were private places. You know, it was private property that we were. Hell, when I was a kid, we parked over off of Eagle Point. We'd walk through people's yards between their houses and walk off and go in between the piers and just start wading all up and down all those piers over there. The backside of Galveston Island, all that was private property, but there was trails all through it. We could drive our trucks back down there to the water and walk right into the backside of West Bay. Everything's fenced off now. And I think a whole lot of that had to do with, you know, those spots were easy to get. Well, not always easy. I mean, we got stuck a lot, but you could get to them. And I think there was so much trash, you know, that got left behind and people not taking care of things. And people just started fencing people out. And the neighborhoods got more strict about it. Like, we could pull into Jamaica Beach, drive to the backside, and park on the street and walk over, you know, just walk off into the water. All of that stuff's not allowed anymore. And it's a shame, but that's where kayaking started coming along. And that's why I started kayaking so much, was because of the fewer and fewer places that we could access the water weren't great wade fishing spots. You know, wasn't where we really wanted to be, but our wade fishing spot wasn't that much further over there. So we could go where we could get in and then paddle to our old wade fishing areas.
Yeah.
So that's probably your best answer, is to get you a kayak. You know, and you can find some launch points close enough that you can get over into some decent wading. But as far as just drive up wading, it's kind of going away.
Yeah. And by the way, you know, if you want to just keep it rudimentary, you can find a kayak that is more than enough for you to do for $500. I mean, it doesn't have to have all the bells and whistles and all of the things that some kayakers love. Man, back in the day, I was, you know, we also can't, Scott, just to keep it with you for a second, can't drive down a lot of beaches anymore. And that's changed a lot. And man, I was king of the access roads back in the day. I would go down an access road, whether it was a beach or something else, and you know, fish spots that I had, and those are gone, and largely because of a lot of developments.
Yeah, and all up and down Galveston Bay. Hell, we could drive from San Luis Pass to the seawall.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that's out now. Over on Surfside, you can still drive most of Surfside. Last time I was there, hell, I don't know. Some of that may be blocked off too. That was some of our best surf fishing anyway. Was all up and down from San Luis Pass down to the jetties down there at Surfside.
Access road number 2, I still remember it. That was where one of my sweet spots was.
Yeah, the old car bodies. You know, there was a lot of traditional, very traditional places that all of us that did it, you know, kind of knew. You know, we called it the car body, so you couldn't tell anything. But I don't know if I could even find it anymore. But I know the general area. But there was some structures that were out in the water from old houses, and as the beach got moved back, there was some old houses that were closer to the water, and what was left over of those structures created some interesting little eddies and things, and those were where we tried to fish the most. And man, I don't know how many days I spent down there just driving up and down the beach looking for bait fish, you know, looking for birds working, and being able to just hop out of the truck anywhere. And the same thing on the Galveston Island side. We did it all the time.
Yeah. Now, Caleb, our neck of the woods, where we are right now, where I am right now, there is still possibilities. But I guess the other answer here is make sure your next vehicle is a 4-wheel drive. Because I can't tell you how many times, whether it's from Matagorda or from the other side, you know, you can get into the bay if you have a good 4-wheel drive and you want to do some wading. You can still do that part.
Yeah, I would say Old Delaney is probably our resident expert of walking in around Matagorda, but you better be able to get through some soft sand and through some mud, over some dunes, and know where the heck you're going. Where her and Sean go driving at, I couldn't find it. And I couldn't do it. I don't know how to get there, but you can drive into the coves on the south side, and I'd imagine that's going to stay accessible for a
sure.
Good. I don't see it getting developed.
But
good with the advent of cell phones,
some of those areas down there.
With the advent of cell phones, hell, it's not near as risky as it used to be either. we drove through some of those marshes over in Matagorda as well, and spent the night over there more than once because we hit some little puddle that looked like it should be, you know, a few inches deep, and there was no bottom to it. And there's no way to call anybody back then.
I could see doing that. That's why I'm not laughing at. I'm laughing with.
Yeah. You know, like Caleb has no water under his boat. We had a lot of water under our trucks.
All the water we wanted.
And
imagine getting stuck on a road. Here. What a loser! Imagine getting stuck on a road. What do you even?
You want to call that a road?
Good comment from Ray about the beach narrowing too, which is pretty much everywhere. My experience, anyway, so it's kind of harder to get in there as easily. All right, so I want to do a little bit of a kind of a public service, Bite Me family service. A couple of announcements here. And then we'll get to the next topic, which is one that Scott and Caleb have a lot of expertise on redfish tailing, and then they're gone. But that's CCA. It's happening, and I haven't mentioned it yet this month. The CCA Texas Star Tournament is on, so I wanted to give all our listeners the heads up on that. I did the early bird because you never know, maybe win a drawing, and then carry the load, which we've been talking about. Scott, Camille's going to come down here, my neck of the woods, Station 8. We're gonna walk for that, and want a lot of our listeners to be able to be a part of that. I'm looking forward to it on Memorial Day. It's really not that far from my house. Maybe beers later at the house if you want to come down. And then I want to do this for our friend Roy Crush, who does such a fantastic job for Texas Boys Outdoors. There's a Texas Boys Outdoors crawfish fundraiser this Saturday at Conroe Lake House. And one of our board members, wanted to see if we could, of course we could mention it. It's a great event. They do God's work. They do a fantastic job. And just wanted to get our listeners, if you're in the Conroe Woodlands area, Spring area, north, run by there. And it's going to be a real good cause here. Last thing, though, on the wade fishing, I should have mentioned my guy Tim Stamps earlier because he does that a lot, and he might be a good expert to get in on this next time we follow up on the topic. He'll keep his stuff in the truck as I often do. I got like 9 rods in my truck right now because I brought them back from Sargent. But He does that a lot. So he's one that we could talk to. And of course, he's a friend of the podcast, coastalfishinggear.com, with the Bite Me 20 promo code for the Bite Me combo package, which is the weight belt and certainly all the sling and the the bags and everything you can imagine. Just go to coastalfishinggear.com, use that Bite Me 20 combo as you can at knockandtaillures.com with our friend. And I caught a lot of fish on that rogue, man. I've been going to that one a lot. That rogue bait is really, really cool. Bite Me 20 at knockandtaillures.com. Get those knock and tail baits. So I wanted to get those things out there for our listeners because they're such good people and always want to help. And now let's get to the topic that I saw on the Facebook page, and I forgot to put it on the rundown, but Scott reminded me. So I'll read the whole question. I'm going to start with you, Caleb. And then Scott, I'm just going to back away and let you guys go at it back and forth. You see a redfish backing. You take your time, pull over, and the redfish kind of meanders out of sight. What would you do? And to go on with his question here, he says he's thinking that the fish is looking for a meal, and the water adjacent is a cut that's, let's say, 2 to 3 feet deep. Do you stay? Do you approach it? How do you do this? And he said this is a must-catch situation. I don't know what that meant. Either that one or others. What do you do? Do you grind? Do you find? Do you leave? Are they gone? Etc.
Man, I left it out of story time earlier, but I ran into this situation somewhat. I was kind of putting through this marsh. It wasn't during tournament day.
Mm-hmm.
And I look down to my right, and there's this redfish kind of floating along beside me, the same speed as me. And this dude has a tag in his back. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's got about a 6-inch white tag in his back. And I wanted that fish bad. I'm pretty sure I'm not eligible for any of it. And I guess Louisiana is the same as us, where they start later, with the holiday. I just wanted to see what it said. I want to take a picture of the thing. This is my thing. And he's kind of doing the same thing. He's kind of puttering around looking for something. Then he slides up under the redfish. They're like the Viet Cong, man. They hit these they hit these little tunnels. You think they're 3 inches of grass down there.
There's hospitals under there.
Yeah, dude. Munition caches. And he kind of disappears. And every once in a while I see him pop out here and there. And I stalked this sucker forever. But to get back to the question, because it's the same answer. That dude, he slipped off and got away from you. You can try to get lucky a couple of times, but I wouldn't put a whole lot of time into him. This happens every day, guiding out of the polling skiff. It happens sight casting out of the boat. This is a 30, 40 time a day ordeal. And if there's deep water next to you and he slides off in it, there's no telling where he went. I would throw something out there into that deep water and kind of try to, judge the angle and the speed he was going when he disappeared and hop it around a little bit on bottom. If he was tailing, then, put on the bottom and hop it around. Maybe you'll get lucky. But at the end of the day, when you lose him like that, is probably toast and time to go on to the next one.
Scott?
I don't know. There's a lot of variables involved in the back of the marsh with a redfish that's up like that with his back out up to their eyeballs crawling. Crawlers are my favorites, man. They're typically pretty aggressive. They're a little spooky, and you can spook them off pretty quick. And I suspect that's probably what happened there. They'll feel the boat. They just feel the pressure wakes from the boat, and if you're moving around at all, they'll feel that, and they'll just slide off. They don't spook and take off. They just hear. Sometimes you can do what Caleb said, throw into that little deeper water. But if they've spooked from you, the chances of them eating are pretty slim. I will sit back and, say I'm guiding somebody and they're fly fishing up front. We're creeping up on one like that. If I don't feel like I spooked it and he's just meandering and he disappeared, I'm going to sit there maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, tell my guy, go ahead and get you a bottle of water, get you a little drink, take a break, and let's see if he comes. When they're doing that, they're definitely feeding. They're going to be aggressive fish. So I would like to see that fish again and get another shot at it. and just try to stay still. You know, try not to bang around, do anything stupid on the boat that alerts them. And I've had them just wander off and then wander right back into the same spot. I've had them pop up 10, 15, 20 yards down the bank. Some of it depends on the tide. You know, you're already on a low tide and it's falling off. Chances are good he's going to fall off into some deeper water and cruise on out of there at some point. Low tide like that and it's coming up, he's probably and keep working it. They're hungry. You know, that
sounds like it's a feel thing.
Really,
like you have to feel what they're doing and their aggressiveness. And
yeah, you got to watch them as you're coming up to it, and you know, really key off of what that fish is doing. And you know, if he's zigzagging back and forth, kind of lazy, you know, he's up there looking for something to eat. And then if he just kind of wanders off the edge, you know, while he's zigzagging, he doesn't care how deep a water he's in. He's just looking for some food. So it's not like he's spooked, and he may wander right back up there onto that shallow water again. Also, if you know your area really well, you know that little creek or that little back lake has a hump in it coming up. Get set up where you know where that hump is and wait for him to pop up on top of that hump, because he's still moving down that shoreline. And, you know, the shorelines aren't all the same depth. You know, and we're talking a fish that's in 3 or 4 inches of water. He drops off into 6 or 8 inches of water. If it's not real clear or it's overcast that day and you can't see the fish, he may just be right underneath the surface, just cruising along, still looking. And he don't care if his back's out of the water or if he's covered up by 2 inches of water. You know, it's not like he's not avoiding you, you know, at that point. Now, one of them that is cruising along up there and he's just kind of meandering, and all of a sudden he takes a right turn and heads for the deeper water, you probably spooked that fish. You know, and they don't typically just splash and take off. You know, it's not like when you spook a mullet or something. These reds, if they just feel a little bit of pressure, you know, they just don't want to be there anymore. So they'll just kind of ease off into that deeper water and disappear on you.
Go ahead, Caleb.
You know, kind of along the same trajectory, I guess. I don't know what you'd call it, but Robert and Taylor, I think they have the heaviest weight ever weighed in a one-day tournament for the Rudies, and it was like almost 20 pounds in 2 fish. And they saw a fish kind of doing the same thing. He is cruising down the edge, and he is throwing a little bit of a weight. And Taylor threw a top water in deeper water that was in front of that fish. And what he wanted to do was come back and intersect the fish, but the fish disappeared on him. It slid to its left and went off deeper, right? And so he just working the top water back, and that fish went and laid down on the bottom. And then as that top water got over the top of him, they said he came out of the water like a kingfish on it, just straight up in the air. Boom. It ended up being, I think, like a 10.2 pound slot or something. But you know, that if you can get to him. So the third fish that we caught on Saturday was kind of the same thing. He got past us. The wind was blowing so hard, he was coming towards us, and you know, he was past us and gone. And I just threw one up to the gods and managed to drop it about 6 inches in front of his nose. But it's the same thing. Like, this fish is about to be out of our range. Make something happen now or move on to the next one. You know, like Scott said, if it's deeper and they're going to be shallower, then maybe wait for him. But usually whenever I lose sight of them for more than 10 or 15 seconds, I just move on to the next one.
Now, Scott and Caleb, but you know, that is kind of in contrast to some of the things we've talked about here. Like when you do catch a fish, you got your shots at them, etc. Once those fish are gone, they're gone, right? Because you've already, you know, stirred the pot, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, if they take a swing at it and they miss, watch the fish. I mean, sometimes you can still follow up. Louisiana fish more so than the Texas fish. They seem to be a little more cooperative about coming back and hitting the lure a second time. A lot of our fish, you know, if they miss it, it kind of depends on if they feel it. You know, if they got it in their mouth for just a split second and you ripped it out, then they're probably gone. Not going to happen. Hell, we hooked one fish over there in Louisiana when I was fly fishing over there with a customer, and my customer hooked the same fish 3 times. I mean, stuck it. I mean, absolutely stuck it. And the first time he hit it, it just shook its head and was on for like 2 seconds. it was a backing fish, and it disappeared on us. And I thought, oh well, there you go. Turned around, came right back up on the bank, almost in the same spot, just about 20 feet down. Eased up there a little bit closer. My customer said, "Ain't no way he's going to eat again." I said, "Well, try him. I mean, he's there."
Yeah.
So he throws the same fly back at him. Fish eats it again. This time he runs about 20 or 30 yards and shakes and gets off. Pops back up on the bank, right near where he was at, and right where he came unhooked. Pops back up there. I pull down. He says, "There's no way this fish will eat again." Ate the third time, and we landed. It was a 15-pound redfish. I mean, you just never know. I mean, you got to read the fish. And that one was, he was just so cool and calm about it. I don't know what the hell he thought he was eating that was kicking his butt.
It interested him. That's for dang sure.
I've been in relationships like that.
They just keep coming back, or you do.
She sure was pretty though.
But that little bit of crazy ultimately breaks the bond.
The odds of a pointy thing in the side of my head were about as equal as Scott's story.
All right, so I'm going to do a little kind of almost rapid fire thing here, whether it's a myth or you believe it. These are topics that have come up repeatedly. All right, so I like this one, and this one is sort of a conglomeration of several points that we hear, and I saw them talking about, it was a sports show. Do you believe it? Do you buy it or not buy it or whatever? So I'm going to ask you all three questions that are always asked. Is it a myth? Or do you believe it? I'm going to start with you, Caleb, because this is one that kind of triggered me, but maybe that's too much of a editorial opinion to set you up for your answer. But rod and reel fishermen don't really put a significant dent in the fish population. Is that a myth, or is that true?
We never get to play games on here. I'm excited.
We're playing games, baby.
Great.
We're playing games. This was I think this was I don't know where I saw it, but like it was the topic of like the limits, and they're going to expire at the end of August and all that. And somebody said, "Oh well, rod and reel fishermen, they don't really put a dent on the population."
I've had somebody call me absolutely furious that I give a dang about the well-being of our bays, and that was one of the lines used: is you cannot hurt fish population with a rod and reel. I say myth.
Myth. Scott?
Absolute myth.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we can hurt them. I mean, we're getting better and better at it. Our techniques are better. We've got more information than we've ever had about fish and how they move and where they're at, and we've got better equipment. We can put a dent in them.
A rod and reel fisherman is not going to go out and hurt the tuna population in 10,000 feet of water. A rod and reel fisherman going into a little old back lake with a little old in and out access. If there's 100 fish in there and he goes and catches, 12 a day, math says that back lake isn't going to populate as fast as he's taking them out of there.
And you say that, but I'm a big fan of Wicked Tuna because I'm a sicko. Anything fishing I watch on TV, they shut down the fishery, regularly because of the commercial fishermen who are catching rod and reel, but also recreational fishermen. So even tuna fishermen, over off the East Coast, they shut down the fishery because they're afraid of the population. All right, we're playing a game. Do you have anything else, Scott?
If that weren't the case, why would we have limits?
Right. And that's science behind it. That's
right.
Wildlife and fisheries experts and CCA and Texas and Louisiana and Florida, Department of whatever they call them in those respective states. All right. So we're playing games. Games. Y'all didn't know you were getting in on this.
I'm excited.
Stronger test line catches more fish.
I throw 50 pounds. So it lands more fish. I don't know if catches or not.
That's not the question.
You're going to have the purists like Scott over here that I already know Scott's going to go with the. I don't know. I'm going to say I like it. Maybe back in the day with mono and whenever you got into heavier tests, you're throwing piano wire. So that question probably needs a caveat, right? If it's mono or something, then I think the lure is gonna work a bit more freely and it's gonna have a little bit less signature in the water. Braid, I you know, I say it because I'm supposed to. If you're fishing for trout, you should use 20 or 30. Redfish, you can use bigger. I throw 50 at trout all summer long just because I don't change rods and reels to do it.
Yeah. Scott, myth or do you believe or truth?
Well,
He's thinking. 5 seconds, Bob. 5 seconds, Bob.
there are so many variables involved.
Almost
man.
got the buzzer.
If
You
you're
almost
snook
got the
fishing-
buzzer there.
Dude, if you're snook fishing, yeah, stronger line's gonna catch you more fish because the snook will chew through a light leader. Me and Dean learned that the hard way. We walked into Florida going, oh bullshit, we don't need 40-pound or 50-pound leader. We can do this with our 16-pound leader that we always use over in Texas. And we got our butts handed to us, and we ended up at the tackle shop that evening buying 40-pound fluorocarbon. Typical bay fishing. Dirty water, no. Clean water, it's going to matter. If you're fishing crystal clear water, you're going to need some lighter line.
Mm-hmm. We got one from the studio audience here that I'm going to argue with Caleb about. One more in the game here. You can't catch fish on a slack tide. Myth or truth, Caleb?
Myth. It's typically not as easy to catch them, or you don't catch the numbers. But if you have a slack tide with some other stimulus, if you have a slack tide with something other good happening, then for sure,
something more gooder.
Something more
That's
gooder.
right.
Yeah. No, you can. It's not ideal, but yeah, heck yeah, you can. You can get your butt kicked on a perfect outgoing tide. This is fish. They don't care what we think we know about them.
Go ahead, Caleb. Go ahead, Scott.
Sure, you can catch black tide. You can catch fish anytime. The fish got to eat, man.
Mm-hmm. It's your favorite line.
Yeah.
Here's a write-in.
But
yeah,
I mean, it's better if the tide's moving. It's better if the wind's moving the water. All those things that makes it all better and makes it easier. But yeah, you can catch them on a slack tide.
All right. Before we get to the studio audience question, and this one is just because I want to fight with Scott a little bit. You catch more fish when the barometric pressure is low or falling. Scott? More. Key operative word.
You can probably catch more. I'll give you that.
We got progress. We've got progress.
But it's not about the barometric. It ain't about the barometric pressure. It's about what the weather's doing and what's happening when the barometric pressure is falling. Barometric pressure falling, it's going to be cloudy and overcast, and fish are more active when it's cloudy and overcast.
That's all right. I refuse
but you can
to believe
also
that.
have cloudy and overcast.
I'd rather believe that. I'd rather believe, Caleb, that our guy Scott is evolving.
I'm gonna digress here.
On super high.
I don't always give Scott the credit he deserves. He's pretty good at building houses and stuff. So we can say that. It matters more in shallow water trout fishing than it does in red fishing.
Well, that is true.
The other day, one of our days of pre-fishing is bluebird skies. It's high barometer, and I bet I caught 20 fish on first shot at them. It's simply because redfish are cooler than trout. Trout, they want the ideal conditions. Redfish, they just cool dudes, man.
You've gone to the dark side feet first.
And that's why I've always said that the pressure doesn't matter, because I'm more into redfish. And you give me a high pressure day, that means it's sunny and it's clear and the chances are really good. The wind's down, it's high pressure, and I can see fish a mile off and we can make them eat. And they'll still eat on a high pressure. That does not affect whether or not they're going to eat.
I think that, I know trout are scaled fish, but they're not scaled fish. I think that fish like trout and catfish and things like that are a bit more sensitive to the atmosphere around them than the heavy scaled fish like a redfish or, redfish pretty much in a class of his own because he's awesome.
I want to believe that, but I've caught a lot of hardheads who don't have a lot of scales.
There's two things that will eat it. Oh, dude, the second day we had, the first day, we had 24 pounds in the boat at like 8:30 in the morning. Okay. But we had 7 blue cats, 4 or 5 bass, Like we were smoking these things. But there's two things that will always eat: a rat red and a stinking hardhead.
Yep.
It don't matter what's going on; they're gonna eat.
Trust me, I am aware. All right,
Oh,
one more.
Also, 35-inch redfish. That sucker's gonna. If
He's gonna
every
eat no matter what. Yeah.
slot fish refuses your lure, that 35 is gonna take the rod out of your hand.
Yeah. And here's the capper for the game. Beans and chili, says Dusty. The answer is it's not chili if it has beans in it. Chili does not have beans. Otherwise, you have a stew. Caleb.
Well, otherwise you have Mexican meat sauce.
Yeah, that's called chili. That's called chili. Mexican, what do they call their Mexican meat sauce? Chili. That's right. They do. Scott, break the tie.
It's one of the silliest arguments I ever hear that gets going is beans and the chili. I like beans and chili. I like chili without beans. It don't matter. I mean, it depends on what kind of mood I'm in. There's times when I make a chili and man, I throw all kind of stuff in that son gun. It'll have corn in it. It'll have all kind of stuff.
That's a good stew.
If
It's
you
still
put corn in
chili.
it, then it's stew.
But what did I use? I used chili powder.
You used meat to
That
make
makes it chili.
The same meat you. No, it does.
did.
I use chili powder and enchiladas. I mean, come on.
So what's on your
Chili-
enchiladas?
Chili with no beans.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna talk me off this ledge.
So if you go buy, if you go down to the Mexican food place and get you some enchiladas, it's going to advertise meat sauce on the top of it.
Right. Also known as chili.
No, it says meat sauce.
If you go to a Mexican restaurant, go to your favorite Mexican restaurant. Our listeners and the studio audience here on YouTube and you guys, and when they say, make sure you, when they come to you, make sure you say, I'd like some of that meat sauce on top of my enchiladas. You know what they're going to say? Oh, you mean chili?
No, they're going to say, yes, sir. It's meat sauce right there on the menu. Why are you repeating it, idiot? You
They don't put meat sauce on the menu. It ain't a good Mexican restaurant if it says we got meat sauce.
Well, from a guy that grew up on the border, I can concur that there is very few good Mexican food places around here. That is accurate, factual.
Yeah.
I wonder what Molina's calls it. Molina's probably has the best meat sauce on their burritos and enchiladas in town.
Yeah, ask him what they call it.
I'm gonna have to go over there and see. I mean, if anything, they call it chili con carne. So they're saying
yes, that means with meat.
With meat.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask him if I get beans with it.
Damn you, Dusty. We spent 5 minutes on this thing.
We're a podcast divided.
Damn you, Dusty. All right. What would Scott do? What would Caleb do? Coming up. Scott? Yeah, I know Caleb is just going to start looking. Although Caleb has a very recent history with what we're looking at the weather. And I heard you say, you say, holy cow. I was looking at it myself right before we started here, and I believe I said holy something, but not holy cow.
I got up and looked at the forecast because I want to go do some video work this week, and we're not doing it again.
I mean, first off, they're saying down here we're going to get just tons of rain. Apparently,
yes,
all up and down South Texas. I mean, they're talking up to 10 inches of rain over the next several days. But the main thing here is the wind. I mean, again, we're right back into that stupid pattern. Saturday morning, 22 gusting to 35. By the afternoon, 31 gusting to 39.
Yep. I'm looking
at
the same thing.
That's pretty much a no-go for me. I mean, like we've talked about in the past, you can't go out if you got to go fishing and you want to, you're just dead set on it. You can go fish and you can catch some fish in wind. It's just not as much fun. Play the wind, work it to your advantage. Find you a point somewhere where the wind's blowing around, blowing water around a corner, making it a false tide. That way you're not fishing that slack water and slack tide. So you can make it work in your advantage just with a little bit of thought on it. Biggest thing is being able to get to your spot. Depends on what boat you're running and how you want to plan your day to get there. Pick a ramp that's closest to the area you want to fish, that's got a little bit of protection and go ahead and get out there. But I can tell you that I ain't going to the beachfront and I ain't going to the jetties on that.
Yeah.
That'd be backwaters only, protected shorelines. Sometimes it works really well to be on a protected shoreline with that wind at your back and it's blowing that hard and it's kind of blowing some bait off of the flat and fish the drop offs. So if I had to go, that's what I'd be looking at, is trying to slip off into some backwater somewhere. I'm not poling in that. Going to get out and wade so that I can control where I'm casting and where, working the area slower. But it's doable. I ain't going to do it.
Hey, Caleb, I know he covered that real well. So I'm going to kind of give you a different, what would Caleb do? It's going to rain pretty much every day on my app all the way through next Thursday. There's a significant chance. Everything from 40% to 90%. I mean, what's it going to be after that is my question, because maybe next weekend it'll start to clear up. Next week's podcast we'll have a better forecast, but I mean, it's rain, and more rain.
The whole time I was in Louisiana, I keep talking about this project we're working on, and I'm thinking, man, when I get home, I can't wait to get out on the back lakes with some cameras and get on these schooling fish. And this is my fault. It really is, for being excited about the back lakes, because it's all that fresh water. It's not going to do it a lot of good. Hopefully we can get some of those big summer bull tides that get salt water back in them pretty quick. It should. I'm a little bit disconnected with Texas, but I haven't heard a whole lot about the shad hatch. It should pump that out here pretty quick. We're in May. It's time for them to be here. I don't know if you and Scott can tell me whether they're here or not, but they should be here. If they're not, that fresh water should help that. That being said, I'm probably going to be, going down the coast and trying to get in the back lakes that are on the other side of the bay versus the ones we have up here that are with the fresh water. And then, somebody said something about can it screw up the fishing? If there's enough of it, what it'll typically do is push the fish into piles. That freshwater wall will shove the bait and the fish into the bays and kind of pile them up out there. But yeah, I don't know. It just depends on how much. My house looked like Hurricane Harvey this morning. It rained a ton here. And if it's Parkoff says it's raining in San Antonio, if it's going from San Antonio to Austin, then Colorado, the Brazos, all those rivers that feed us are just getting filled up and it's headed this way. So it's going to be one of those springs that gets a little bit screwy and a little bit interesting if this keeps up.
All right, boys, man, that was fun. Congrats again to you, Caleb. And do either of you guys have anything you want to add? I do want to say, you mentioned it before the show, Tommy Kuntz, legendary fisherman down in Matagorda. Obviously I've fished with him, and he's trying to get back on the water after having surgery on his leg. You can go to our Bite Me group page and help him. They're trying to fight. What are they doing, Caleb? They're trying to get some sort of device to help him on the water, on the boat.
Well, I mean, a quick background. Tommy, I call him Uncle Tommy. He's actually Uncle Tommy to Nick and Pat, and then him well through that family. He's been guiding longer than I've been alive. He's one of the OG guys down there. He's a great guy, nice guy, always willing to help anybody. Hell, if he's willing to help me, then he's overly generous. But yeah, he had to get his leg amputated, and he's getting a prosthetic so he can walk, but they're trying to get a device that he can actually use to lift him from the dock into his boat, because it'd be pretty dangerous stepping across there these days. And so, yeah, they're doing a GoFundMe for him, trying to help out with that, because guides are rich in stories and experience, but not in bank accounts. So, we're trying to do what we can there to keep him out and doing what he loves.
All right, Scott, you got anything before we get out of here?
One of my apps that I've been using and I've mentioned on here quite a few times was Magic Seaweed. It gives you the surf and how, the seconds between the waves and all that stuff. Well, they sold out, and now it's Surfline took them over, and I just switched over to that. And it's got a few new features on it, but mostly it's pretty much what Magic Seaweed was before. So look for that, Surfline.
Surfline.
I just glanced at it just to see for the Portland Jetties on Saturday. 8 foot at 7 seconds, 28 gusting to 42.
All right, I'll see you
That
out
might
there.
be a little rough.
7
I'll
seconds
see.
is a good spacing. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Just
7
kind of
seconds.
angle into him. Angle into him a little bit. You'll be
Yeah.
fine. You'll be
We'll do it.
fine. All right, boys, man. Really appreciate it. What else you got, Scott? Like, you sound like you were gonna say something else.
I was going to say that you have a
No,
shorter
and-
boat between those waves, but good.
Y'all have a good one, man. Thanks everybody who joined us here on the YouTube Live. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to join that Bite Me group page. Be safe. I wouldn't go out there, but if you do, catch them up. Talk to you next time. Dang it! I miss hitting the post. I love hitting the post.
I hit the post.
I did not hit the post on the music, but.